Shabbat Shalom. I want to share with you an idea on Parashat Behaalotecha. So in the middle of this parasha, we find the pasuk of Vayihi bin Soah Haaron. It's surrounded by two inverted nuns. We have two psukim in the middle of the parasha. We have a nun facing the wrong direction in the beginning, and a nun facing the wrong direction at the end of the second pasuk. The question is, what does that mean? Why are they there? So these two psukim are describing the prayer of Moshe Rabbeinu when the Aron was traveling, when the ark was traveling. And it depicts the prayer he would say when the Aron was in motion, and the tefillah he would say when the Aron was put back down and stopped traveling. The Gemara in Shabbat gives three opinions to explain why these two inverted nuns are there. I want to focus on the middle one, the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. And he says, you want to know why these two inverted nuns are there? Is to teach you to separate these two psukim, these two verses, and to tell you that Sefer Bifnei Atzmo, these two verses are its own book. You see, we grew up with the belief and the idea that Torah is Chamisha Chumshe Torah, there are 5 books of the Torah. Comes here, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi says, no, you got it wrong. There are 7 books to the Torah. The Sefer Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar until this pasuk of Vayihi bin Soah Haaron, when the Aaron traveled. Vayihi bin Soah Haaron is itself a book in itself, these two pasukim. And then after Vayihi bin Soah Haaron and continue until the end of Bamidbar is a 3rd book. So we have book number 6 and Sefer Devarim is book number 7. Wild. Now, how is it possible that 2 little psukim are a book in itself? How's that a sefer? But it's not just a metaphor. We actually have a halachic implication. The Gemara says that if I have a sefer Torah that became old and worn out, and most of the letters are erased and cut and no longer kosher, if it still has 85 letters, like the amount of letters are found in these 2 psukim, it has Kedushat Sefer Torah, and it has a din of a Sefer Torah. Because that's the definition of a book. 85 letters. And how do I know that from? From these 2 psukim that are called a Sefer B'Tzmei Atzmo. And more than that, the Behaalotecha says something fascinating. And he says, if you look, the first pasuk, Vayihi bin Soah Haaron Vayomer Moshe, has 12 words, corresponding to the last pasuk in the Torah. And the second pasuk, Ubenucho Yomar, when the Aron was put down, has 7 words, corresponding to the 7 words of the first pasuk in the Torah, of Bereshit bara Elokim. And the message is, these 2 psukim really represent the whole Torah, a book, the Torah in itself. What does that mean? So I want to share with you a fascinating idea. The Chidah says something very interesting. The Chidah says that in reality this book is not just 2 psukim, but he says a Sefer Anak Vegadol. It's a huge book. Ve'atid lehidgalot. In the future, all that is hidden in this book will be revealed. All we have now is these 2 psukim, but in the future, it will be revealed. Question, but what does that mean? Either I have it, I don't. It's a book, or it's not a book. The Chidah is saying something fascinating. You see, why is the Torah written as a story? It's a book of laws. Like any book of laws, it should be just list me the laws. You can do this, you can't do this, you should do this, you shouldn't do this. But yet Torah is written and teaches us the laws as a way of a story. And it's really the story of the Jewish people. You see, because Torah is our life. It depicts the relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people. It's the story of the Jewish people throughout history. As long as we had nevuah, we had prophecy, we can interpret life. We can understand what's happening. We had Nevi'im who explained to us what message Hashem is trying to tell us. So from the beginning, through the 5 books of the Torah and books of Yoshua and Shoftim, Melachim, all the way to the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, we have that Torah because we had Nevi'im to interpret what happened. But once the Nevi'im left, there's no longer a way to interpret events that are happening in history. But they're still happening. And all of Jewish history, in reality, is Torah. Our life is Torah. We just don't have Nevi'im to interpret it. But in the future, it will be revealed. In all of the last 2,000 years, 2,500 years of Jewish history, we had no interpretation for it because we had no Nevi'im to explain to us what was happening, will be revealed to us. And that's this book. See, this book bridges between the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar, which depicts the Jewish people in their ideal state, encamped around the Mishkan, living in an ideal state utopia, Jews living up to their potential. The second half of Bamidbar, after these 2 psukim, depict the Jewish people, unfortunately, in a fallen state. We have one bad thing after another. We have the Korach's rebellion, and before that we had the sin of the spies. And we have Bilam's story, who tried to curse us. And one thing after another. The whole second half of Bamidbar depicts the Jewish people in their fallen state. But in the middle, this book is broken up with these 2 psukim that depict the Aaron as it's traveling. And prayer of Moshe's, Vahi ben so Aaron, when Aaron traveled, Vayomer Moshe, Moshe says, Kuma Hashem, Hashem, rise up, V'yafutzu oyevecha, and let your enemies scatter, V'yanusu misanecha mipanecha, and all your enemies should run from before you. And this Aaron that's been traveling is traveling with us throughout Jewish history. And we're here because in a sense Hashem is behind the scenes with us. And whatever is happening in history is depicting our relationship with Hashem. But we just don't understand it. But in the future we will. So yes, our life is also part of the Torah. But it will be revealed in the future. So let's make sure we make that life meaningful and purposeful. Shabbat Shalom.